way to raise awareness than at this challenge, the 26.2-mile LA Marathon.
So far, it's been good for me. How about you, Ben?
Very interesting experience.
A total of 21,829 runners from all 50 states and 55 nations laced up their sneakers to prove their mettle, mainly to themselves. For the fifth straight year, the race stretched from Dodger Stadium to Santa Monica. And at 81 degrees, it was the hottest race day ever recorded for the Stadium to the Sea course.
Rock that hill! Rock that hill! Woo!
You know, the effort and the energy that they put into it is phenomenal.
Police and firefighters stood by to aid almost 100 runners. 16 of them sent to area hospitals for problems such as dehydration and chest pains, about twice the usual number according to the LA City Fire Department. For those who finished, it's a personal victory, feeling the heat but going the distance on one of the most challenging race days in years. At the LA Marathon, Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
The heat was also blamed for slightly lower times this year. That's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ellen Chang. A reminder that you could catch us online at lacityview.org. You can also follow and like us on Facebook. We'll see you back here next week for more of LA This Week.
Illegally parked cars? Call 311, the toll-free number for non-emergency services. 311, your one call to City Hall.
G'day, Troy McCubbin from North Hollywood. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35, our city, our channel.
Sergeants, please come. members, have them report to the council chambers. Good morning. Good morning. Today is Tuesday, March. Today is Tuesday, March 18th. Madam Clerk, I do believe we have a quorum. Could you call the roll?
Blumenfeld, Bonin, Buscaino, Cedillo, Englander, Fuentes, Huizar, Carrasco, Corian, Labange, Martinez, O'Farrell, Parks, Price, Wesson. 10 members present, a quorum, Mr. President.
First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
O'Farrell moves, Parks seconds. Next.
Committed to resolutions for approval.
Cedillo moves, Blumenfield seconds. That brings us where?
Mr. President, today is Tuesday, and now be the time for the flag salute.
Okay, now if we could all rise, and Mr. Bonin, if you could lead us in today's flag salute.
Thank you. If everybody can put their hands over their heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to thank you, Mr. Bonin, and I want to welcome back all of the members that visited our nation's capital, and thank you for all of the good work that you did on your trip. With that said, why don't we, at this time, go through the agenda, Madam Clerk.
Mr. President, before we begin, there's a request to continue items 1Z, A, B, and AC to March 25th, items 1S, U, and Y to April 1st, and item 1H to May 2nd.
Okay, without objection.
And also, Mr. President, there is a request to note and file item 48.
Okay, without objection. Okay, that brings us where?
Items 1 through 3 are items noticed for public hearing. The Department of Building and Safety reports that items 1D, G, and Q may be received and filed inasmuch as the liens have been partially rescinded, paid in full, and exempted due to being an owner-occupied single-family dwelling, respectively.
Okay, thank you.
And there are cards on all 3 items.
All right, so let's move on.
Items 4 through 32 are items for which public hearings have been held.
In fact, going back, can we also continue item 1T, as in T, for 30 days, and that would bring us where? No, going back, I'm pretty sure it was...
That would 30 days would take us to April 18th. Due to recess is April 23rd.
Okay, now we're on items 4 through 32.
Yes.
Specials members, Mr. Parks.
Let's see, hold number 24 until Ms. Martinez comes. She has an amendment she'd like to make.
Hold 24.
But I can't pull. I know.
Labange,
I'm call
Mr.
16.
Labange.
You, please.
Hold 32.
Special.
Okay, Mr. Englander.
24.
24. All right, let's prepare to Mr. Englander.
Take that back. So 24 was called special. 16.
16. Mr. Koretz.
I'd like to actually have 1AB removed from. I actually heard today rather than delayed.
Okay, why don't we just hold on that? Let me vote on this section. Then, Mr. Koretz, I'll come right back to you. Okay, let's. The public hearings has been satisfied on these items, so let's prepare to vote. So, Madam Clerk, if you would please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, now, Mr. Koretz, you wanted us to deal with items. What were they again?
It's 1AB. I think it was continued in error, so we wanted to hear that
Okay, so
today.
did you hear that, Madam Clerk, that
Yes.
was continued in error? So let's continue.
Items 33 through 52 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, so without objection, those items are now before this body. Cards?
Cards on items 33, 40, 46, and 50.
Mr. Labange. So we'll hold those items.
41 special.
41. Mr. Bonin.
If it wasn't called special on speaker cards 33.
33. Or was that? Well, let's just hold 33, Madam Clerk. Mr. Parks?
Number 37.
37 for Mr. Parks. Okay, let's prepare to vote on the remaining items. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, now let's, Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. President. Some items related to some port issues. I need to send some items forthwith, if I may.
Go right ahead.
Items, thank you. Items 7, 28, 29, and 30, sir.
Okay, so without objection, forthwith on those items. Okay, that brings us where, Madam Clerk?
Mr. President, that brings council to presentations or items called special.
Mr. Bonin, if you're ready, the floor is yours, sir.
Captain, come on up. Come on over here. Excellent. Thank you so much. Good morning, colleagues. This morning, I am rising to acknowledge a real, genuine, significant hero here in Los Angeles. Someone who did something brave and heroic and actually potentially saved a child's life just a couple weeks ago. On February 26th, while working at the grill at T2 Taco, which is right across the street from my Westchester field office, Jesus Delgado, where is Jesus? Come up right here, heard the screams of a young child. Just a few moments earlier, Grady and Brendan O'Brien, who were just 4 and 6 years old, had been walking home from school with their nanny. Suddenly, a 33-year-old man approached them, punched the nanny in the face, and grabbed 4-year-old Grady and ran off with him, yelling, "This is a kidnapping," as well as other disturbing rants. 6-year-old Brendan, the older brother, started running home to seek the help of the boy's father. As he did, Jesus and 6 students from nearby Westchester Enriched Sciences Magnet heard his screams. What happened next is what's heroic. Jesus and the students confronted the kidnapper and demanded he give the boy back. The kidnapper told them to get out of there, that it wasn't any of this business.
Hold on, Mr. Bonnet. Shh. I think we want to listen to this. No applause.
Thank you, Mr.
Go right
President.
ahead.
The kidnapper told them this wasn't any of their business. They believed it was their business, and they made it their business. And they freed Grady before physically subduing the kidnapper until officers from Pacific could arrive and arrest the subject. Grady O'Brien is safe today because Jesus Delgado and 6 Good Samaritan students from Westchester Enriched Sciences Magnet bravely rushed to the aid of a neighbor. Because in a moment of chaos and of confusion, they reacted quickly and bravely, and they prevented a terrifying scenario from becoming what could have been a tragic
Let's
nightmare.
give him a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
The 6 students from Westchester High couldn't be there today. They scheduled to come, and then they realized they have exit exams. I'm going to bring them back because they deserve a round of applause and the recognition from this council as well. But today, I am really very proud to present Jesus Delgado with this resolution as a token of gratitude on behalf of the City of Los Angeles for the heroic act. Jesus and the students who rushed to Grady's aid embody the notion that our neighborhoods are better places to live when neighbors look out for each other. They all have our sincerest appreciation. It's really comforting to know that brave people who care about their neighborhoods are in our midst. Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Can you take one more? Do you want to say anything? We'll do another photo. Do you want to say anything? You don't have to. No. Okay. Jesus doesn't want to say anything, but perhaps. Do you want to say anything? But his boss, the owner of T2, Billy Tompkins, is right here.
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you so very much for this opportunity. Jesus, needless to say, is a little taken back in words, and I just want to say on behalf of our entire staff how very proud we are of this man's character, how his character truly revealed itself in the face of something absolutely horrible that no parent could ever wish on for their children, and we are just so very honored and proud to have him as a part of our business, and we're very grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Bonnet. Jesus, thank you so much. This story could have had a terrible outcome, but because of your actions, we are praising you today, and a child lives and can continue a normal life. Words, I can't come up with the right words to thank you. I wish there were more people like you. God bless you, and again, thank you for everything you did. Thank you. Let's give him another round of applause. He saved a child's life, quite possibly. Before you leave, Mr. Cedillo.
I just wanted to say I saw this story on the news, and it's extraordinary, and so I wanted to acknowledge him as a hero. I guess many of you guys were away when this took place, but this is really something that as Angelinos we should be proud of. Quiero decir, es un gran honor estar aquí con usted. Hoy usted un gran ejemplo de todos que viven aquí, particularmente todos de los migrantes que vienen acá para vivir con dignidad y respeto. Y hoy tú eres un ángel de la ciudad de Los Ángeles y tú eres mi héroe de hoy. Quiero decir muchísimas gracias por sus acciones. Y bueno, nada más que es un honor para mí estar aquí con usted. Such an honor to be here with such a hero, an angel of many angels in the city, for his heroism and for his actions. He is exemplary of many migrants who come here, who want to live a decent life, and who, in spite of their conditions or circumstances, feel that they are also committed to the city, committed to the well-being of all of its members, and particularly its children. So I wanted to thank him for being such a great hero in the city of heroes and angels. Thank you.
Again, thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Huizar, are you ready to? Looks like you got a couple of champions maybe in the audience today.
How you guys doing? Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations.
bit. It's going to be on Channel 35 on cable. Do you guys have cable? Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Mr. President and colleagues. And I'm very proud to be standing here as an alumnus from Salesian High School in Boyle Heights to recognize some individuals who have accomplished a lot this year. I'm talking about athletics at Salesian High School, where it was a very good year, and we had not just one, but 2 championships, and those championships were in football and cross country. The varsity football team went 4-0 in their league and 12-2 overall. They made it all the way to the CIF Division 13 title game and did not disappoint. They managed to score 26 points in the second quarter to secure a dominating and impressive 34-0 victory over Mission Prep in the title game. Congratulations. And I think the Seattle Seahawks must have stolen their game plan, because it kind of seemed like the same thing. But these young men behind me brought home the first CIF football championship trophy in school history, a school that was founded in 1958. This was a huge victory for the team, for the school, and proud alumni, and only adds to the great legacy of Salesian High School. This year's team was led by head coach Angelo Jackson. There's Angelo, where in the back? Let's give a big round of applause to Angelo Jackson. And we also had great coaches such as Anthony Atkins, Deval Thomas, Jesse Valdez, Juan Gonzalez, Charles Eli, June Taloi, Oscar Hernandez, Marty Martinez, Joel Darien, and George Lopez. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your leadership in helping these young men achieve the championship. But we also are joined by Salesian's championship cross-country team. This team is no stranger to league championships. They took their 8th consecutive league championship and placed 3rd for the 3rd consecutive year in the 4th division of CIF. They are consistent, they are excellent, and they are champions, and they continue to provide the legacy that Salesian has always been known for in cross-country. The Salesian cross-country team is led by Coach Justin Torres, who in August was named Inspiring Coach of the Year for his ability to ignite athletic and academic fire in his athletes by Brooks Running Company. And let's give a big round of applause to Coach Justin Torres. Thank you, Coach. I'm very proud of my alma mater. Salesian is a school of choice for a growing number of families in the East Side. In fact, their enrollment has increased by over 150 students in the past 3 years. This year's freshman class is the largest in recent history. For the past several years, 100% of Salesian students in every graduating class have chosen to continue their education, with close to 70% of them going on to a 4-year university. That's another statistic that deserves a round of applause. Thank you so much, and congratulations, gentlemen. And so with that, I have a number of certificates and that I will give in the back room, but I just simply wanted to congratulate my alma mater and the pride of Boyle Heights. Salesian High School is an all-men's Catholic high school that has done wonders in the area, preparing young men to not only be well-educated, but to be athletes and to be civic-minded and helping others. This light blue sweater here, which I was also a member of the Salesian Letterman Society, also is a society which supports our community in various community events and teaches our young men how to be responsible adults in their community. So with that, let me invite up to speak from our football team, Arnie Vega. Arnie?
On behalf of the football team, we'd like to thank Councilman Huizar and the council for recognizing us for our accomplishments. We worked very hard this off-season and all during the season. For all of us, this season was a dream come true, and we couldn't ask for anything more to be recognized. Thank you.
Thank you. Yay. And from our cross-country team, Nathan Michael Guzman.
Like, on behalf of the Salesian cross-country team and Salesian High School, like, we are all honored to be here today, and also like to thank for all of our accomplishments that we've had today, and I thank you for hearing us speak today, and thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And
Mr. Weezar, wait, do you have one more
just
person
briefly,
to speak? Because you have a member on the and I think you can guess.
I think I know
who
who it is.
Member
Yes.
might be Mr. Labange.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to salute the Mustangs of Salesian High School. I'm so proud of all of you. One of my dear friends, Rick Alatorre, who just retired from LAPD, was a great member of the Salesian Graduates alumni, and also the late, great Dave Cervantes, who was some of your coaches. We lost him too soon, and all the others that are there. But the work that you do to be an athlete and a student is so important. And I just want to think, and to be a champion is so important. And coaches, to be able to educate. Coaches are teachers. And they're teachers out in a big classroom in a field. And then cross country to have that extra gut, to hit that hill, to hit that mile. I just think this is so important. So for all of us members, it's to salute both boys and girls athletics in our schools, which are so important that. And I also rise, Gil, to give a little salute to Salesian for the Midnighters. And I just listened to this morning, let's take a trip down Whittier Boulevard. So here you are today. That means there is a lot of symmetry going today. Let's hear it for the Mustangs of Salesian High School. Good job, Jose.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Mr. Weezar, back to Mr. Cedillo.
Mr. President, you may remember cross-country champion Fred Richardson. Ran at USC, but developed his skills with Brother Tom at Salesian High School. You guys are way too young. This was somebody who your parents looked up to. But he was a great U.S. Olympian athlete, I believe, and represented our country in the Olympics in 72. Is that correct? 72, Tom? Fred Richardson, cross-country runner. Brother Tom, who was a great coach of thousands of young boys in Boyle Heights. Tom, it's a brutal hill that you run down when you run down into that hole, and then you got to come out of it. So I'm just very proud of you. I want to say congratulations. Salesian's a great little school right there on Soto. There's another great school a few blocks away, even greater. But
he's not talking about Cathedral. He's talking about Roosevelt. He went to Roosevelt.
Salesian is a great bridge from Boyle Heights to the rest of the world, and so very proud of all of you. And congratulations, Mustangs.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. And again, to our boys who accomplished great things this year, Salesian has a legacy and history of being one of the best in cross-country throughout the state. And this year, we're treading new ground as we have our first CIF championship with our football team. I want to congratulate you again. And above all, academics is the underpinning, the layer that connects all of this together. These boys will all be going to a collegiate career after they graduate, which academics is stressed in no matter what we do at Salesian and community service. Thank you so much, and congratulations again, Salesian. Go Mustangs! We're going to go to the back, so follow me to the back through here, and then we're going to take some photos.
Okay, Madam Clerk, it's my understanding that Mr. Labange had a question on item 32. He has informed me that that question has been answered. So if we could proceed and vote on that item. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, now we're going to move to item 40. That was called special by cards, Mr. Walsh. John Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org or J. Walsh Confidential, tweeting at Hollywood Dems, capital H. This concerns police departments' outreach efforts concerning the LGBT community. it's very, very poor, the outreach here in Hollywood. Because I'm going to tell you what's happening in Hollywood, and you're not going to hear this from anybody else. The rapes, we had 2 simultaneous rapes at 3 a.m. on Sunday morning. 2 within 3 blocks. Homosexual rapes. People seem to think it's a penis going into a vagina. Often it's a penis going into a man's backside. Now, it's true that many of the assailants are homosexual, and some of the victims are gay. But homosexual rape is on the loose. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Okay, let's prepare to vote on this. Let's open the roll. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
We'll move on to quickly item 33. Mr. Walsh called special by you as well.
This is item 33. This concerns the appointment of Miss Ruth Galanter. I don't see her here. She may be hiding someplace. She used to be on the city council. Okay, she's here. Now, I want you to know when she ran against Pat Russell and was winning in the polls, I want to show you what happened. She went to bed one night. Somebody crawled into her room and slit her throat from ear to ear. That's what happens to people who are really a danger to what to the status quo. People like me don't get slit ear to ear. Maybe you should ask her. It took her a year to recover. And after that, she realized to get on the program so she didn't get her throat slit again. Everybody knows this happened, and she was an honest politician till they leaned on her. And the guy who did it, incidentally, is out now. I think he served, a year for attempted murder? But the HollywoodHighlands.org, welcome back Ruth Galanter.
If we could get our former colleague and commissioner to come to the center desk or center table, welcome. And now I'd like to defer. In fact, I remember when you were here, I was running around like so many other staff people, so it's an honor to see you here. But I'm going to defer to Mr. Bonnet.
Thank you, Mr. President. Welcome. Colleagues, I called this special, frankly, because I wanted to say a few words about Ruth. As most of you know, I got my start in public service working for about 7.5 years for Ruth, starting seated basically right over here, staffing her in this council chambers. And when you work for someone for a long period of time, you can begin to read their mind. And I can tell you right now that Ruth is thinking nothing more strongly than I wish she would shut up and sit down, because she would prefer that I make no fuss or say anything about her. But I wanted to say something about Ruth today. I'm glad you're back. I'm glad we have you in public service. Many of you, most of you, did not have an opportunity to work with Ruth. So you missed an opportunity to work with someone whose predominant and most powerful traits were courage, integrity, and brains. Ruth spoke always, often with delight, and often to her peril, truth. No matter what the circumstances, and it's a lesson I have tried to learn and tried to follow. You had uncommon characteristics for an elected official, and the people in various parts of the city are very lucky to have had you. One of the things that I think you did best was cut through BS, and we have too little of that. I could list dozens of things you did that are your legacies. I'll just mention the one that I think you're most proud of, which is the low-flush toilet ordinance. At a time when our population was growing because of a little-known wonky proposal our water consumption actually decreased. And that's because of the work of Ruth, who steered us through all sorts of stuff when she helmed the committee that oversaw DWP. Two notes I want to make in conclusion. My favorite quote from Ruth is one I oft repeat, which is that I believed in conspiracy until I discovered incompetence. I remind myself of that often around here. The other thing that Ruth often said to me when I staffed her on the council floor was the least productive part of her day was in council chambers. And in honor of that sentiment, I will sit down and shut up, as you probably wish I've been doing for 3.5 minutes. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bonin. I would now, I want to defer to Mr. Labange.
Thank you, Ruth, for all that you did. I did get to serve with Ruth just for a little bit of time, but I know how you were a special friend of John Farrar and very caring towards John Farrar, especially in all those other years. But it's so special, and I think one thing on this role here is let the people know of Los Angeles that we're solvent on the issue of retirement and be the watchdog that you always were doing what's right. Because I think it's people work real hard, but they also have had this system since 1925 and changed a few times between there that we always want to make sure it's as strong as the foundation of this great city hall. But thank you for coming back and helping us in this way. Thank you. I vote.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Welcome, and if you'd like to say a few words, we'd love to listen to them.
Well, Mike is right, actually. I would like to thank you all for your consideration. I would like to thank both Mike and Tom for the kind words. And can I get a copy of the tape?
Yes, you can. All right. With that said, let's make this official. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Congratulations. Forthwith, per Mr. Labange. Mr. Englander, what I think we want to do at this time, why don't we go to item 16?
Oh, great. Excellent.
And I'll defer to you.
Great. Thank you very much. I'd actually like to call somebody up very special, Commander Rick Webb. If you could, just actually come over here next to me. What we're about to vote on is unique, where you've got one leader in the Los Angeles Police Department that will forever change the equipment that our officers carry each and every day. This is Commander Rick Webb. I want to say Jack Webb. Little throwback. This was actually started, believe it or not, even before Commander Webb. He took the ball and he ran with it. But this was started by a woman we all know, and a woman that is loved and cherished in this city, and that was Bobby Parks, the chief's wife. Actually went out originally and raised money on her own to buy trauma kits for LAPD officers to carry. What Rick did is take it a step even further and created our own design that every officer will carry. What this motion does is it brings 8,000 trauma kits thanks to the Police Foundation that he worked with. These portable trauma kits will be issued and be mandatory with all sworn field officers, new recruits, during medical emergencies. They will all carry these. They will carry face shields, gloves, adhesive tape, modern tourniquets, compressive bandages, and more. And one of the things we did in committee is we officially named these now the Webb kits for LAPD. And so I urge your aye vote to accept these donations, to name these the Webb kits, and to thank our commander, because there is no doubt that these absolutely, in an active shooter situation, will save a life. And so he's truly heroic for bringing this forward. Thank you very much. Thank you. You want to say
again? Thank you.
No? Come on. Just
sure,
if I can allow.
Go right ahead.
Please.
Well, I don't know about the Webb kit part of it, but I did know that back in 1996, Officer Phil Cuesta was killed in the line of duty, and people who were back around at that time do remember that Chief Parks' wife went out and raised some funds to create what was then the trauma kit. This kit is just an iteration of that, a couple generations that have since passed, based upon the life lessons in blood that our soldiers, Marines, and sailors and airmen have learned in lands far away with new wound trauma. So we're adopting a little bit of their medical technology, and I hope that we never put these things to use, but in my 35 years of police experience, I'm afraid to say that the day will come where we use these kits. So we thank you very much for approving this donation, and thank you back to the Chief way in 1996 for your leadership.
Thank you. Now let's prepare to vote on that item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Thank you. Before we go on, there's another introduction I'd like to quickly make. We have a special visitor that's with us today. He originates outside of Cleveland, Ohio, in one of the Ohio suburbs. He's been to Georgia. He's been to New Jersey. And for those of you that have children and any children that are watching today, our special guest today is Flat Stanley, visiting us all the way from, like I said, Ohio. And I just want to make sure that we give him some play, because I'm going to send back to the elementary school a clip of us here on the council with Flat Stanley. So let's give Flat Stanley a round of applause for the kids back in Ohio. Welcome, Flat Stanley. All right, with that said, we want to move on to item 41. Mr. Herman is called 41 Special. If you could please come forward. Or Mr. Labanja, was you, and we have a card on it from Mr. Herman. Item 41.
Residents of Los Angeles, in creating a position for a new deputy chief for traffic enforcement at a time when the deficit continues to provoke all you citizens to pay more taxes, this is the result. Let's stop the deficit to continue, because if it continues as a result, due to every member here that's not listening as they lollygag among themselves, the problem is this: we will continue to have that deficit. Why conspire to create a new position when there should have been already a position working within these four departments? So I say to you today, in question, do we continue to make new advancements for job positions that really don't give a damn to make it work for us all? Thank you. 1 minute.
Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much. Is anyone here for the police department on this issue? Detective Sergeant Edo, is no one's here, but listen, here's the situation. Right now, I've got to ask an instant poll. How many been a victim of crime? Raise your hand in Los Angeles right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many in the last year? Okay. All right. 5 people. How many been impacted by traffic in the last 24 hours? Everybody raises their hands. It's real simple. I love the Los Angeles Police Department. I'm especially proud of the badge that you wear that shows this great grand symbol of Los Angeles, this city hall. But traffic is a big issue. And I will tell you, lately, we've been backing away from traffic. And we've been backing away from traffic because it's not been dealt with. And just like we have a commander like Mike Downing, who's focused 100% on the challenges of the modern era past 2001, all I'm asking for is the CAO and the chief of police to have a firm discussion to see where, and come back to us, to have a deputy chief who's responsible for the 600-plus traffic officers in general coordination. Right now, it's in 2 parts of the police department. Is that correct, Mr. Edo? That's correct. It's not in 1. And we need a deputy chief who handles traffic. It's a big issue, safety issue, as we transform the streets, which we're trying to do as we transform in pedestrian zones, bicycling, all the other issues, goods movements. Who in the police department is key to it? Because I'll ask the city attorney, who's on the phone right now, what are the 3 E's of traffic, Mr. City Attorney? Do you know that?
I do not.
Education, engineering, and enforcement, okay? And that's a big component. And thank you, Mr. City Attorney, for answering the question, even though I caught you in the quick. But the key is this. We should have someone who's a commander of high level who could oversee all these bureaus and make sure the function for the safety of the people of Los Angeles. So I ask for an aye vote, and we'll be fighting this in our budget hearings coming up. But I really would support this greatly, because I do not see that someone's on the wheel at this issue that you look to. Yes, when there's other issues, we have people on the wheel, but for traffic, I think it could be better coordinated. And I thank Mr. Englander, the fine chairman of Public Safety, to waive this out. Ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's prepare to vote on this item. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, now, Madam Clerk, I want to forthwith on that item, but I have 2 items we want to vote on reconsideration. That would be items 40 and items 32. So if we could prepare to vote on reconsideration of those 2 items, let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, we're going to go to item 45. Mr. Walsh, followed by Donna Pearman. If you please come forward, speak on item 45.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. Item 45, this concerns handguns, litigation regarding unsafe handguns, authorizing a pro bono contract. I don't trust pro bono contracts. With Caldwell Leslie, what pro bono means is they're going to charge you for their expenses, so they're going to load up the expenses. What they're doing at this law firm is putting a gun to our heads. As you know, I am as excited by guns. I am as unexcited by guns as Mr. Bonin is unexcited by women. HollywoodHighlands.org.
This is Donna. This seems to be another ban or thing on guns. It's only basically going to go against the law-abiding citizens, because people who are criminals do not care about how many laws you have against guns. They're going to do it. Matter of fact, they'll like it, the fact, if you have any more laws that they can go against, because criminals like going against the law. So basically, and as he said, they're probably going to go way up on the cost and yes, it does put a gun to our heads. All these gun laws, basically, we don't want another Holocaust to happen in a police state. So basically, we don't need any more laws against guns. We need to enforce the ones that we have against criminals, and stop with these dumb laws and enforce the laws that are right. Enforce them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's prepare to vote on that item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, Mr. Walsh, we're on item 46. Item 46.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. Again, this is an extension of a reward order. As you know, I believe the only reward you ever paid out is when a black man ran over at Century City a white man. And Mr. Koretz, being a racist, made sure that he went to jail. But I just want everybody, they're not going to allow you to see this, but this is what happens if you apply for a reward. This is a T-shirt that I purchased on Hollywood Boulevard. It says, "Snitches get stitches," and there's a straight razor, and it's bleeding. You are afraid of these gangs. And I want to tell you, and you damn well know I'm right, if they don't kill you, they'll kill your grandchild, which is what happened to somebody on this city council. Snitches get stitches. Throw away your rewards.
Let's prepare to vote. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate.
15 ayes.
Thank you. Now we're moving on. Again, Mr. Walsh on item 50.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. This is number 50, and number 50 concerns reception for the black employees. Of course, incidentally, they have spent less. They're only $145. Some of the other minority employee groups are $400, $500, $600. And I just want everybody to know, and I'm not talking to the black employees now, there has been a study. If your skin is black and you have the same qualifications as other minorities or whites in the city of Los Angeles, if you work for them or work here, you are paid less. And that is true. And if I'm lying, and if there's anybody who's really black on this city council, they will say John Walsh is lying. In fact, we are paid the exact amount of money. My statement is simple. Racism here, and you got these black Uncle Toms up here following along with them.
Let's prepare to vote. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate.
15 ayes.
Mr. O'Farrell, are you ready? We reconsidered an item for you. I believe that was item 40.
40, yes.
So now we will go back, Madam Clerk, to item 40, and the floor is Mr. O'Farrell's.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Colleagues, in all of our police divisions, in all of our neighborhoods, we have community officers that are specifically assigned to our diverse communities across the city of Los Angeles. They are our senior lead officers. The Senior Lead Officer Program is an essential program, sometimes the first point of contact for our residents who are involved in their neighborhoods. I know that for me, being active in Glassell Park in the 1990s, one of my first points of contact was my senior lead officer at the time. We had some public safety issues going on, and I went to a meeting and met my senior lead officer and walked away from that meeting with a sense of confidence, a sense of security that the public safety interests in my neighborhood were being addressed. It's an essential part of what the police do in the city of Los Angeles, and they're a very diverse group of individuals who report to our community relations sergeant in all of our offices. And what I would like to do is just get an update from the LAPD on the services and the profile, and get a briefing on the services that the senior lead officers provide in all of our neighborhoods. And also for the LGBT community, I think that it's not necessarily universally understood that the Los Angeles Police Department also have a liaison specifically to work with the LGBT community in the city of Los Angeles. So I'd like to take this opportunity to have Commander Smith from the Community Affairs Relations Office, along with Commander Matt Blake from the Office of Operations, and Senior Lead Officer Sandra Mora, our LGBT liaison, to come up and just make a presentation on the Senior Lead Officer Program and the liaison of the LGBT office on what they do in our neighborhoods. So I want to thank all of you for coming up and giving us an update and educating the larger Los Angeles community on really this wonderful program, this wonderful essential program in our neighborhoods that make all of our neighborhoods safer. And I will say this, because of the Senior Lead Officer Program, there's a direct correlation to our historic lows in crime, Part 1 crimes, not seen since 1949. And I give a lot of credit to the Senior Lead Officer Program. So without further ado, Commander Smith, if you could take it away. Thank you.
Good morning, sir, and good morning, council members, Mr. President. I am Commander Andrew Smith. I'm in charge of Media Relations and Community Affairs Group. This is Commander Matt Blake, who's in charge of, who's an Assistant Director of the Office of Operations. Eric Molinado is a Senior Lead Officer from Olympic. Heidi Stockline is also a Senior Lead Officer from Olympic. And next to me is Sandra Mora, who is our Community Relations Unit LGBTQ Liaison. Just a quick, brief history of the Community Relations Unit. Was started in 1965 in response to the riots here in Los Angeles and has grown kind of exponentially since then. We basically have two different missions. One is the Community Relations section assigned to the Office of Chief of Police, where Sandra and I both work, and the rest of it are the Senior Lead Officers in the Office of Operations, where Commander Blake and the rest of these folks work. Just so you know, one of the most important cornerstones of our senior lead and our community relations operations is the community outreach that's done through the community forums. We have the African American Forum, the Asian Pacific Islander Forum, the Latino Community Outreach Forum, and the LGBTQ Forum, the Religious Forum, and the Muslim Forum. Those are generally out of the Office of Chief of Police. Former Lieutenant Fred Booker is kind of an advisor to everybody over there, and they meet once a year in each of the geographic bureaus, and each area obviously coordinates those, but they're also aided by the officers assigned to the Community Relations Unit, and each Community Relations officer is in charge of one of those forums as they go out throughout the different bureaus. Sandra does the LGBTQ and has been doing outreach with them for about the past 5 years. And then the Office of Operations, I guess I'll let Matt Blake talk a little bit about that.
One of the things that was, good morning, by the way, Commander Matt Blake from Office of Operations. One of the questions that was asked was, where are we as far as our resources? How many police officers do we have? In the Office of Operations, as you know, we have about 7,300 officers. Out of the 7,300, 173 of them are senior leads assigned to our areas. We have added 20 senior leads from HACLA that are in our developments, our housing developments. We have 8 new SLOs from our brothers and sisters from General Services Division that have come over, so we're very excited to have them, totaling 210 senior leads. Now, your senior leads, you really have a lot to be proud of. I know that we are specifically asked about the community engagement, so I just want to touch on this briefly. There's so much for me to talk about that I think I'm just going to quickly touch on a few. The first thing that our senior leads are doing now in every circumstance is they're going out and they're meeting with our victims of crime. We are all parts of, all of us in the city have been victims of crime at one point or another. And it's nice to have our senior leads that actually come out. They come out to your to your house, to your office, and they talk to you about your crime, and that's for property crime. So that right there is your first engagement with our SLOs. We talked about our 4 bureaus forums. We also in our housing authority, these housing authority senior leads, they are taking a new turn in our community policing. They are coaching sports leagues. They are coaching soccer leagues for our community, for really our less advantaged community. They have football teams, and they're actually doing daily trips with our young kids. In addition to reaching out to our kids, because clearly this city is going to be built on their future. We have put over 7,000 children and young adults through our cadet academy, and who have now graduated. Currently, we have 700 of these young adults in our community academies, or in our youth academies, and our cadet academies. We also have our senior leads who are being trained in the CERT. And so they're going to be training our community in community emergency response. We also have parental academies. Every one of these things that we're doing is an engagement with our community, and our community is so diverse, whether they're from the African American, Latino, Asian, Pacific Islander, our LGBT community. Clearly, we are engaging them on every single level, and it's our senior leads that have a lot to be, or that are responsible for a great number of those things. And so, for that, I want to acknowledge them as well, as they seem to be really the stronghold in our department.
Thank you, Commander Blake. On the queue is Mr. Buscaino, a former senior lead.
Thank you. Yes, I would be remiss if I don't say a few words on having worn that patch for 8 years as a senior lead officer. I want to thank Mr. O'Farrell for raising this issue and asking the key questions on being most effective as a senior lead officer. And again, having worn that uniform for many years, I just want to stand and recognize the work that our senior leads are doing day in and day out. Having spent the better part of the day yesterday in Watts and working with alongside Senior Lead Officer Lopez in Southeast yesterday, it was clear, and also meeting with the Spanish CPAB in Southeast yesterday, it just reminds me of the ongoing commitment that our SLOs have day in and day out in responding to residents' concerns or questions. You know, I've always said it takes a certain breed to be a senior lead officer. It's not for everyone. You senior leads are the mentors, the psychiatrists, the family therapists, and it's an incredible, rewarding assignment. And to see the department continuing to embrace the program. Having said that, you know, Mr. O'Farrell, you're absolutely right. If you look at our crime reduction strategies over the course of the last 10 years, it reflects the hard work of not only the men and women, the LAPD, but also the community. We are a brighter, better police department. And I want to say we look at the consent decree, and we credit the consent decree today based on who we are as a police department. Other agencies around the world, around this country, are turning to the Los Angeles Police Department to look at ways of our community, of embracing the community. And specifically in our housing developments, in Watts, all of our housing developments, we have 10 dedicated SLOs. And the report that you gave, Commander, on these SLOs in our housing developments are coaching the Watts Bears. You see the heart behind the badge in what our SLOs do day in and day out. And for that, we say thank you for your hard work. And we say thank you for putting a shine on that badge and representing the Los Angeles Police Department. And we continue to be the best in the world because of our community policing philosophy and what we've done on the ground in working hand in hand with our neighborhood watch groups, our business watch groups. And obviously, I'm so passionate about this issue. It's, you know, also the senior lead officer is not only the chief of police in your basic car area, but you're also the council member as well. So thank you, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you very much, Senior Lead Officer Buscaino. There's no other speakers on the queue. I'll remember just one other thing. Mitch is going to close in a second right here, but the Senior Lead program is a very good model for all departments. We've started a Senior Lead Planner. We're looking for Senior Lead Rangers, which is key. The other thing I wanted to say, well, all the groups, Commander Smith, if you could think about a friendly amendment, if you took every high school student body president and worked with the school police and had a youth, I know you work with the cadets, and we love the cadets at all our areas, but just think about a youth outreach for the leadership of the schools in some ways. So, Mr. O'Farrell, that's a friendly amendment, Commander.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just going to say, for those in the chamber and those viewing later when this is recorded, is the best way to get a hold of the LAPD for information is lapdonline.org. Is that pretty much the best way?
If you're just sending an email, lapdonline.org, we monitor that every day. We try and keep up with those every day. Or contact your station and get a hold of your senior lead officer. If you don't know who it is, lapdonline.org can hook you up.
Wonderful. And to Slow Mora, you will make presentations to groups that request it, answer questions, etc. So I would like you to make your information available as well to the greater LGBT community or any other community that might want some sort of micro-focused presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Senior Lead Officer Alessandra Mora, go by Sandra Mora. Basically, as the LGBT coordinator for the department, and I manage a lot of the events that involve the chief, like the parades and events, I can always be reached and provide information. I do what's called a Know Your Rights presentation to youth, especially to transgender youth who are going through rough times, and try to guide them. One of my passions also working with the youth, just like my partner here, Heidi. And also coming up every year for the last 4 years, we've had what we call the LGBT Community Police Academy, and I believe one of your staff members is going to be attending the class. It's a 9-week course that gives the community one-on-one interaction with LAPD, and they learn about our policies and kind of interact with us, and we learn from them as much as they learn from us. Hope that answers.
Wonderful, thank you. Just lastly, if I may, Mr. President, I urge everyone who's listening to this to get involved, to contact your senior lead officer, to go to community meetings, whether it's a neighborhood watch. If you want to start a neighborhood watch, call your council member, call your senior lead officer. We'll help you start a neighborhood watch group. Go to a chamber meeting, meet your SLO. Go to an improvement association, a neighborhood council meeting. Get involved. It makes your neighborhood safer. It makes your community more worthwhile to live in and enjoy. And this is a great city, and the Senior Lead Officer Program can help make us even greater. So I urge everyone to get involved, and I want to thank all of you for presenting today. Thank you, and thank you, Heidi, as well. An awesome SLO down in Olympic Division. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, let's prepare to vote. Madam Clerk, open the roll. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Okay, Mr. Parks, it's my understanding on item 37 you were okay. So if we could call up 37 at this time. No speakers on the queue. If we could please open the roll. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Mr. Weezar, we're going to go to item 32 at this point.
Mr. President, amending motion 32A has been circulated.
Okay, so I have a card or cards on this item. Ms. Pearman? Donna Pearman?
Okay, this appears to be about transportation. So we really have got to do something about the bus transportation. So I'm hoping this will do that because the buses are really running horribly. So we got buses that are breaking down and buses that are only for an hour. Well, suddenly they don't care whether to send out another bus. So we need to, I'm hoping that this item will fix the buses in the system, because you said you want people to take public transportation, but nobody in their right mind would take public transportation unless they don't know how to drive, because the system is broken. I mean, I've got too many areas where I've been left stranded. And, of course, the red line and orange line is against the disabled people who don't have disabled and senior TAP cards. That's wrong. So they have to charge full fare, and I don't think that's right. And we don't want to have the bus on Van Nuys Boulevard. We do want the bus going down Van Nuys Boulevard to 761. We don't want to get rid of that. So I'm hoping that this area will also pertain to people can we can stop buses that are very badly needed, because you take the 761 going down Westwood, you'll strand a lot of people, especially a lot of people who don't speak English and people who are disabled who won't realize that bus is going away and going down Sepulveda. So I'm hoping that public transportation will do that. So that's all I'm going to say, is I hope that we really need to get our bus going right and stop doing all these expensive rail projects.
Thank you. Mr. Weezar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I've circulated an amendment, and essentially what this does is exempt 3 projects that would otherwise have to pay a fee for the streets of significance. And we're doing this because these projects had actually received their building permits prior to the implementation or naming of this area as a street of significance. The city staff and the city attorney's office concurs with this assessment, so we just wanted to make sure that we move forward and allow these projects to move forward without being over budget. Thank you. I ask for your aye vote on this.
Okay, thank you. Then okay, I don't have a card for you, Mr. Herman, on this one, but if you want to speak on this item, come forward. Okay, then let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Okay, now we're going to go to item 1. We have several cards. I'll call you up 3 at a time, so please head towards the center aisle. Conway Reed, Mr. Herman, Antonio, I can't make out the last name. If you'd come forward. Francisco Corrado. Okay, yes, sir. Identify yourself. Conway, is that you?
Yes, it's me, Your Honor.
Well, I don't know about that, but good to see you.
Likewise. Not under these circumstances, though.
Yes.
But good morning, council persons, and the Honorable President. My name is Conway Reed. I was born and raised in Los Angeles 71 years ago. I bought a lot over 40 years ago on 116th and Main, and on this lot I store old collectible cars. I don't do anything but store these cars, and they all belong to me. I had a recent run-in with the building of safety. They wanted me to put a big gate up, so about 3 years ago, and I put a $10,000 gate and fence up. I've been trying to comply with them. However, it's been very difficult because right now, and I think I'm being extorted for $4,000 because they say now I need a permit to store my own cars. So I went down and tried to get a permit. So they tell me in order to get a permit, I need to build a building on the place. I said, how about a temporary trailer like they do with some place? They said, no, it has to be permanent, cemented down. They also told me, I said, well, look, I'm not selling anything. Well, that puts you in a category of selling cars. And I said, well, I'm not selling any cars, and I can prove they all belong to me. Anyway, I'm looking for an extension so I can work something out because I got this commercial lot thinking I can use it for my own individual thing. But I know if I had a residential lot, I couldn't store anything on it. But anyway, now they want me to pay a $4,000 fine because I don't have a permit. And I'm not ready to do that. I think I'm being extorted at this point. So I'd like to work up something with my councilman, Mr. Laban, and Buscaino, and see if we can do something about let me use this lot or I'm going to have to get rid of it.
Well, Conway, it's my understanding that this item is going to be continued until May, which will afford you the opportunity to work, have dialogue with the council office. And we go back to 1987, and when we first met, it was over a land. So you're a land baron now, since I've met you so many years ago. Anyway, so your item is being continued, and Mr. Buscay, to what date, Madam Clerk?
April 23rd.
Okay. Yes, I thought it was May. Just speak with Mr. Buscaino's office. So now, Mr. Herman, good to see you. Mr. Herman.
Los Angeles at its best. Extortion, extortion, and extortion. Lien upon lien, lien upon lien. This is treason. Treason because it shows you how hard up the city of Los Angeles is to not notify any of its constituents here. As you see the line behind me of people who are hurt, harmed by this extortion of liens by the city of Los Angeles. When does it end? When does it end? How long, Mr. LaBonge, how long, Mr. Buscaino, do we continue to put these liens? Mr. Weezer probably knows better about liens than I do, but who cares at this point? Because on November 10th, when he's at court for Francine Godoy, we will
let's stay
all
on this
know the
item.
facts.
On this item.
As I state the facts about liens, they're illegal. Stop them. Reconsider the motions you're doing against people, which is harm. Hold my time. 1 minute.
Okay, Antonio, is it Rivera? Please come forward, followed by Francisca Corrado. Yes, sir.
The reason I'll be here because I rent the place, and this guy used it for Lupus Auto Cell Storage, and am I the owner of the property? So this guy didn't pay the building safety. So I want to know that this guy's supposed to pay that money because they use the property. He got 7 years over there on the property. And he's supposed to pay all the building safety bills, I think.
And the address to the property is where?
1905 I Street. I Street.
Okay, Mr. Buscaino, if you could send a staff person over the side, if you would go that way. To your right, sir. Follow the direction of the sergeant. So now, if we could have Francisca Corrado.
Hi. ¿Qué le dijo? Hable en español, por favor.
Yes, go
Sí.
right ahead.
Yo le voy a traducir de aquí, señora. Usted hable. Ajá, que sí, lo que estoy peleando es de que no tenemos ahorita dinero para pagar ese dinero.
What I'm right now fighting or asking is because I don't have that enough money to pay this charge.
Ajá, porque nosotros es primera vez que nos llega esta.
This is the first time we received this notice.
Ajá, no más había llegado otra.
That was the only one, and that's why I didn't know until now.
Nada más. Quería saber qué puedo hacer yo para.
I would like to know what can I do to fix this problem.
Is that it?
¿Eso es todo?
Mr. Weezer?
Solo quisiera para
Sí.
no pagar.
I would like to know what can I do to make arrangements to make this payment.
No tengo trabajo.
I have no work. I have no income.
Mr. President, what address is this? Or what?
This is for, I believe it's in your
Esto pienso
district.
que es en su jurisdicción.
Okay, sí, sí.
421 North Evergreen.
Yes. Señora, si viene aquí al lado, hablamos con nosotros.
Thank you, Mr. Weezer. Ruben Andrade. Ovidia. Is it Montenegro? Please come forward and identify yourself.
Ruben Andrade.
Go right ahead.
Well, I came here to discuss about the notice I got, the fine I had to pay, but I'm not working. I don't know what I got. This case of 2010. I wasn't aware of this.
What address, sir?
It's 1006 South Conquest Street.
Okay, if you could go to your right. Sergeant, if you could help. And next, followed by, is it Sheila and Joseph?
Sofiero Montenegro.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, I live in my house, and back in 2010, my house was inspected, and I fixed the problem in the garage, and the inspector never came back. Now I got a fine for $2,900, and I don't have money to pay it. So I'd like to know if I can get a continuation of this or find another product to solve it.
And the address again?
It's 15522 Gonzalo Avenue, Gardena, California. Belongs to LA Strip.
Is that, Madam Clerk, 15? You could go to your right. Maybe Mr. Buscaino could send someone to chat with you. Follow the sergeant. Where's Sheila and Joseph, Luis, Alberto Mariscal Reyes? Please identify yourself.
Sheila and Joseph Fredericks.
Go right ahead.
Okay. In August of 2012, we received a bill from Building and Safety. We just amounts, and we kept getting bills anyway. It's a rental house in Tarzana, and my tenant moved out in November of 2012, and she lived there about 15 years. I had pool service and I had gardening service, which I paid for. And we kept calling them. In fact, I have a paper. My husband he called all these numbers on October 22nd, 2012. So the attorneys, he called a ton of people to find out what this was all about, because I was just getting bills, nothing on it other than bills. And they finally said, well, it's about your shrubs and your pool. Your pool is green, which I have. I had pool service. I have bills for which I paid for pool service. Anyhow, I went over there, and what I did was I had the pool drained. And I had...
What's the address of the property?
18720 Red Wing Street in Tarzana.
Continue.
Okay. Anyway, as soon as I found out what the problem was, I went and I had a landscaper come over, and I had a tree service come over, and I have the bills for that, and I had that taken care of. And I was still being billed, and I could see if I was being billed and the city was doing the work. I could understand that, but they kept billing me and billing me for work I had taken care of.
So what I'm going to ask you to do is to go over again to your right, and you'll speak to a representative from the district where the property is located. So if you go, sergeants, if you would direct them.
My stuff is there, my bag is there.
So is it Luis? Please come forward, followed by, is it Shai Cohen?
Yes. My address is 19509 West Adequate Street. I live there, and I was wondering if I can get a continuous so I can discuss further details with this.
1 second. And that address again?
19509 West Adequate Street.
Ask you to go to at the direction of Sergeant. And if I could call the next person up. And again, I have I cannot pronounce the last name. Is there someone here, La Cienega Boulevard? If you come up and then identify yourself. Sir, now the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Shai Cohen. I'm here regarding a lien on the address 12265 San Fernando Road in Sylmar. This is in Richard Alarcon's district. My family and I have had a car dealership there since '92. In 2008, there was an AIM program which sent out inspectors to car dealerships and garages, etc., to check up on zoning. After being there for so many years, we received a notice to comply because out of the whole property, there is a strand of about 2,000 square feet in the middle of the property that's an RA zone where our offices happen to be sitting. We have been going back and forth with this for the last 5.5 years, and we finally got to the point where we gave up and we had to close down the business. During that time, we kept receiving yearly fees. They are yearly inspection fees, and there was one fee that is considered non-compliance.
Could I jump in for
Sure, sir,
a
yes.
moment? And I believe the council person from the district would like to chat. We'll see what kind of accommodation he may be able to make. So if you'd go on, and I'll call up the last
Thank you, sir.
speaker. So if you could speak to Mr. Fuentes. No applause? Yes, sir.
Hello, City Council members. My name is Sharam Shokrian. This is my father, Amir Shokrian. We have a property on 980 North La Cienega. We are disputing the lien that's being placed on our property. We had a tenant there that was a restaurant that failed, I guess, to comply with some violations. And there's really no way for us to enforce or to police the tenant at all. And I think it's completely unfair for the landlord to have to bear any fees due to the negligence of the tenant. Our only power is to remove the tenant, which we had, and we have a judgment against them, and they are no longer around. The restaurant hasn't been open for almost 4 years now, 3 to 4 years, and there's no way for us to get a hold of the tenants because they had moved out of the country. So to have this lien being placed on us as landlords, it's completely unfair.
Okay, thank you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this item for a moment, and we'll get back. So if you just hang around for a bit, we'll come back to this item.
Okay.
So
Furthermore, I just wait a minute.
I can't hear you, sir. Speaking to the mic.
It's something that, that's something that remind me that something was saying that somebody was saying Hassan and Hussein or three of them are daughter of Muawiyah. They said, no, it's not Hassan, it's Hassan. It's not Hussein, it's Hussein. They are not three, they are two. They are not daughter, they are son. They are not from Muawiyah, they are from Ali. This restaurant doesn't have a liquor. This restaurant doesn't have a happy hour.
So what we're going to do is have you chat with someone on the side to see how we proceed. So we're not going to vote on this item as of yet, but the public comment, Madam Clerk, has been closed on this item. So we will now go to item 24.
Excuse me, Mr. President. Did you want to? Council should vote on the remaining items.
On the remaining items, I guess we can move forward and take the vote. So let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Okay, so now we're going to move to item 24. No speakers.
Mr. President, for item 24, an amending motion has been circulated.
There's one card, Mr. Herman.
24, I pass it.
Okay, Mr. Englander.
Just have a friendly amendment to 24, and if I could, we circulated some photos as well. We're seeing a proliferation of these for a period of time. Some time ago, we were getting a lot of advertising, unhitched trailers. Got some state intervention and help from a local assembly member who was very helpful at the time. I don't remember his name. I don't know, Bob. Anyway, we're having a big growth of these illegal dumpsters throughout the San Fernando Valley. And what people are doing
is they're advertising Rent Me, and they're just dropping them off at places. In fact, they're not even being utilized. Many of them are sealed shut and just used for advertising purposes. So as a friendly amendment to what Mr. Parks and Ms. Martinez put in, which I really do support, and I think it's fantastic, I'd like to add this to it, that if they are advertising and using it for purposes of just advertising, we can impound them immediately. Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's, Mr. Labange.
When you mentioned that, I thought about people now are moving on skids, which somebody store it all, or somebody will move someone to an apartment. Is Public Works going to be looking into all of this? Because I think as long as they're dumpsters, whatever's placed in there, do you understand what I described? When people move to a house or a building, sometimes they have a pod, etc. It's in the motion. Very well, it's in the motion, because the condition of the street sometimes is damaged by the lift and when it hits there. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Englander.
As well as the Ms. Martinez's motion as well, and I really do appreciate that. We're seeing a lot of those as well, the drop-off locations that are being set up. So thank you for that.
Okay, let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
And Mr. President, there's a request to continue item 3 to April 8th.
Okay, so without objection, that will be the order where it relates to item 3.
And Mr. President, there's a request to send items 24 and 49 forthwith.
Without objection, let's move to item 2. I have a card from Mr. Herman.
Angelinos, Los Angeles. Are we still at a time of understanding that alcohol sales for on and off-site consumption is a legal way of saying that we're making so-called business-friendly communities? Are we to say that alcohol consumption is in our best interest? So why do we have 2 items here, one located at 1911 Hillhurst Boulevard in Los Angeles, zip code 927, also at 1205 Abbott Kinley Boulevard in Los Angeles, 90291. For public convenience? For what? A gourmet market to sell alcohol. Isn't that great when politicians make legislation to say that we must make better, stronger enforcement of laws that damper the means of people who have DUIs, and not to mention names of those who have escaped DUIs in the city of Los Angeles, such as my ex-councilman, Jose Huizar. But who's to say how we spend our tax-paying dollars and whose public interest comes first? Those of you who are in the convenience for alcohol permits and license? Or is it in best interest in regards to save people whose lives are injured by alcoholism, DUIs? Don't get me wrong, Mr. Labange, like you, a good wine and alcohol drinker, I too drink, but in moderation and in places that are designated for alcohol consumption. But to put a market, to put an interest in a restaurant and call it a gourmet, for all of us, that's hilarious. And to all of you listening, Angelinos, say no.
Okay, let's prepare to vote. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Mr. President, there's a request to continue item 1N to April 1st.
Okay, you know what? Let's go through a couple of these. One, N being one, it's my understanding that there's that's a 2-week request, and you said that brings us to April 1st?
Yes.
Okay, now so without objection, that'll be the order. There's a request for 2 weeks on items 1J and K per Mr. Weezer. So that's April 1st as well. And from Mr. Koretz on item 1L, a 2-week continuance, again, April 1st. And on items M and P, 2 weeks as well, and that's from Mr. Bloomingfield, which would put that on April 1st as well. So is that it on item 1? No, there's more. Okay, now, and all of these are Mr. Buscaino. F, G, O, R, T, W would be 1 month, which would place us where?
April 23rd.
And AC for 30 days. So that'll be the order without objection. I don't know if there's anything left, Madam Clerk, to vote on with those items being continued. If there is, would you please let me know?
Yes, Mr. President. There are remaining items.
Okay. So that would now bring us where? So that brings us where, Madam Clerk? To general public comment?
Yes, Mr. President.
All right. Harriet Elliott, Mr. Herman, and Mr. Walsh. General public comment, please come forward. Yes.
I already spoke to you a couple times about the death of my son 20 years ago. 21 years ago, my son asked me to drive him to his girlfriend's house. On the way, he looked like he was thinking and worrying, a lot of consternation. When we got up there, he didn't invite me in. He didn't want me to meet the parents. And I thought, he's 17, he can decide. Then he says, I'll call you when I want you to pick me up. So he called me the next day. And I'm thinking as I'm leaving, what's wrong with these parents? Is he going to stay overnight? That's what the impression I got. And sure enough. And I thought, are they out to lunch? No, it's like an arranged marriage. They chose my son. They knew their daughter was going to become sexually active, and they chose my son. Now, was I a good mother? No, not better than some, worse than others. But if they chose my son, obviously my son was not a gang member. I just wanted to bring up that point. And maybe I wasn't a great mother, but my son got the core values correct. I just want to raise that. Also, on the 11th, I went to the Board of Supervisors. I saw Gloria Molina put pressure on the Sheriff's Department to show homicide reports. They do not want to show homicide reports. Now, I have the right private investigator. If you, Mr. Wesson, can put pressure on the LAPD, we need to see the homicide report. We need this case closed so that we can look at what happened. I don't know what happened. This is one scenario I have on my back. We don't know what happened. Somebody killed my son, and I want you to put pressure on the LAPD to close the case.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Elliott. Mr. Herman, followed by Mr. Walsh, followed by Kelvin Harrison. Yes, sir.
Mr. Speaker, and fellow Angelinos and those of you in Los Angeles, we have all heard of the corruption and scandals here in the city of Los Angeles, despite the deficit. And yet, to this point and moment in time, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Santana said you guys are by far going over your budget. So I hold resentment on behalf of the public, for you show no interest in the public. Let it go, let it go. Hold it back, I can't anymore. Because of you, Mr. Herb Wesson, Herman, as I would say, let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. We can't forgive and forget that you can't steal from the public. Let it go, let it go.
This is a little disruptive, Mr. Herman. This is a little disruptive here, so why don't you...
Truth is you can't turn away from the corruption. You slam the council doors on all your constituents. But the liens keep coming, the liens keep coming. They're banging on the door, don't let it happen anymore. I don't care what they're going to say to test the limits, to break it through. Let it go, let it go. Please, Herman, let it go. We all know that the corruption must stop and end someday. Let it go. Let
Thank
it go.
you, Mr. Herman. Any singing that's not in tune is a disruption. Okay, Mr. Walsh, followed by Mr. Harrison and Donna Pearman.
John
Yes,
Walsh,
Mr.
blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. My ancestors came here hundreds of years ago so they could tell King George to screw himself up the ass. And that's what makes America great. We all came to America so we could tell people to go screw themselves up their ass. But some fascists have come to America and they want to take our rights away from it. The blood of my great-great-grandfather is on this table. And I have a right to say any damn thing I want in this country. And you know, when you went to the federal court, they came out on our side. The mayor just released a report. The airport was in chaos. I speak to everybody out here. The report came out. The airport was in chaos when the TSA agent was killed. Let me read from it. Emergency telephone checkpoint not working. Adequacy of police communications not working. Paramedics took long to reach shooting victims. All of this appeared on my website when Mr. Hernandez was killed. And if it had been a white TSA agent, it would have been a big deal. And if it had been a Mexican, it would have been a big deal. But the TSA agent was on the bottom of the barrel as far as you people up here are concerned. He was from Central America. I speak to everybody. Rick Perry, come here. Take it all with you. Take Occidental with you. Take the damn boardwalk with you. This city is out of control. The blood of a TSA agent has stained this airport, and they're doing nothing except come to L.A. It's wonderful here. It is horrible to live here. And don't invest your money in this city, and they squirm when I say that. HollywoodHighlands.org. Find out the truth. Jay Walsh, Confidential.
Okay, Mr. Harrison, Donna Pearman, Sid, if you'd come forward. Yes, sir.
Sifu Kelvin Berman Harrison. Sifu is my Chinese professional title under Grandmaster Tok Moon Hong and film star Grandmaster Kim Tae Chong. I'm also a student of Grandmaster Steve Sanders of BKF. I'm addressing the President of the United States, the Democrats and bipartisans and clergies in my behalf, and Honorable Reverend Jesse L. Jackson, my civil rights attorney and investor in my inventions and my music. Reverend Al Sharpton, why did you accept my information of police harassment and racial attacks upon my life for approximately 5 to 6 years in San Luis Obispo? You knew of the death threats by San Luis Obispo Police Department, CIA agents, and FBI agents, and certain police department agents as well, and also city council members setting me up, certain ones. You did nothing, causing me to go to prison with expectancy of life because of your selfishness. Mr. James T. Wilson, Mr. Frank Berry, and Mr. Bruce Gordon of the National NAACP as well. Your selfishness caused me and my life to be destroyed. Also, this as well caused imprisonment in San Luis Obispo because of you. My information to you of violations upon my life for years. You use me for these means. This is countless of dollars of damages to my life, to my children, and also to my investments within my inventions. This also concerns my satellite invention, which is over $1 trillion once it is developed. And so this also has caused individuals within San Luis Obispo, within the elite echelon, and also within law enforcement, and also CIA and FBI, and certain individuals within certain of city government, and also Washington, D.C., to cause me to be in prison. Reverend Al Sharpton and the NAACP, you need to do something now and get this solved. I went to San Luis Obispo with a clean record, and as well, many other individuals, as well as Chuck Liddell, UFC retired fighter, and his individuals threatened my life and caused harm to me and to my martial arts students. This is all on record, and I was a political prisoner for 16 years in San Luis Obispo. Thank you very much, and I will continue this, and this is for the record.
Thank you. Donna Pearman, followed by Sid. Where are you, Sid? I just saw you, okay. And after Sid, it's a Dr. McLeod.
Okay.
Yes, Ms. Pearman.
Anyway, I'm Donna Pearman from Van Nuys. And first I want to clarify, I'm against unfair laws against law-abiding gun owners, the bad laws. I'm for the law-abiding gun owners who love the Second Amendment rights. We have the right to protect ourselves. Anyway, I wanted to say the local politicians are driving our taxpayers to the poorhouse. Last week, you were in the Tri-Conference coming up with more bad ideas that will hurt constituents in Los Angeles, especially the ones in the San Fernando Valley. Right now, you already gave sweetheart deals to the Westfield Topanga Plaza, $150 million, and came up with CRA projects, $5 million to complete the CRA projects that never should have been started in the first place. There's a dead deal, and you're going to have the taxpayers have a loan for 25 years just for the interest by itself. What we need to bring back is video conferencing so that people have the right to speak in the San Fernando Valley, what happened to come all the way over here. The air over here is, there's a lot of air in the dirt and subway, and it causes aggravation with people with asthma. And I'm also having a problem with eye irritation, problem with my legs. And it really hurts the disabled people. And now with the earthquakes, you want us to take the subway to come all the way over here to make it unsafe. The earthquakes are going on, and it wouldn't cause that problem if we opened a Van Nuys video conferencing, and maybe let's bring up San Pedro too, because this is about people's right to speak. You don't have any right to tell us to have to spend 2 hours coming over here, at least 1.5 hours from West LA. So
Thank you very much. So now if we could get Sid and a Dr. McLeod and a Dr. Is it Devereaux? Please come forward.
Good morning, council members. As I stood before you about a month ago to tell you that the DOT has given us a green light regarding the project of the 600 San Vincent Court, unfortunately, about 3 weeks ago, I've heard that they put it on hold. Apparently, an entity, which I'm not going to name at this point, is that someone has put a stumbling rock in front of this particular project again. But I think things should be ironed out within a day or two. That's what I was promised by the DOT. And I hope that the outcome is positive for the sake of the district for the sake of the project and for the sake of the Angelinos. On another note, while I've been trying to do this project, I stumbled on many issues between the building department, code enforcement, and county health. I've noticed that there's a complete breakdown, which concerns all the council members over here, is that restaurants or businesses who come upon opening their doors, there is no coordination between these entities, county health, building and safety, and in the end, the permitting process. Above all, the way things work in the county and in the city is this, that any business, whether that's a restaurant or another business, as a matter of fact, they will go to the city and get for $100 their business permit. It should be the other way around. Any businesses that exist in the LA County or in a city, they should first comply with the building and safety measures and also environmental health building codes. And once they satisfy these two entities, then they should present their clarification and the final permits to the business center, which is the city, and get their operation permits. Everything is backwards. I will talk about this in the future on a lengthier process. The city council has to know that the system is broken and needs to be fixed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if I could get Dr. McLeod, followed by Dr. DeVoe.
Dr. Annice DeVoe. I am the property manager at the Safe Haven for Abused Women and Domestic Violence and Human Trafficking in 959 North Vista in West Hollywood. Now we need to look close at these nonprofits. Are they operating according to regulations? The director of this African Community Resource Center, Safe Haven in West Hollywood, she invested $1.5 million. Now, she used the funds for her personal self. And she got 15 years in jail, but she only served 2 years. She left all of these clients stranded. That's where Dr. McLeod came in. Now she's coming back after 2 years, and she's trying to take the property back. All the property she had went into receivership, plus this property. Now she's coming back. She got a second on the property for $90,000. And just in January, she got another loan for $12,000. Now, we're having a lot of problems with this lady. Dr. McLeod will reiterate on that. But due to the sense of urgency, we want to stop the closure of this property. African Community Research Center. We're seeking help from the council. Now, this is located in Councilman Koretz, K-O-R-E-Z, I think that's his name, Koretz, district. Now, we have had a lot of support from our dear friend, Councilman Price. We just love him. He's our hero. But now, bottom line, we need to take action necessary to stop the disclosure of ACRC. Halt the closure of this shelter. We have women that have great needs.
Thank you, Dr. McLeod. No, your time is up. We'll just get Dr. McLeod now. Thank you. Followed by Mr. Marine.
Okay, one moment. First of all, I would like to thank you, Councilman Herb Weston, and I do need your attention. My good friend Herb Weston, our chairman, and I would also like to thank each and every one of the councilmen whom I've had the pleasure of knowing in many years. Let me introduce myself. Apparently, Dr. Denise did. I served on the Inglewood School Board. I served in the National Council of Negro Women, also the NAACP, along with the Parent Take Action and Parent and Community Action Team, the African Community Resource Center, and many, many others. I also served with Merv Donnelly, President Barack Obama, President Bush, Councilman, our good friend, Curran Price, who is our hero, and also you, Mr. Chairman Herb Weston, who's also been there for us, as well as now we have, thank God, for Councilman Paul Caress. And we're looking forward to having many other councilmen to help us. In Councilman District number 9 is Councilman Price. We're looking at Council District 8, 10, and 13. And we invite all others as we, parents, take action. And Parent and Community Action Team are helping our community heroes sitting here on the City Council. I am here, and I'd like to thank each and every one of you for allowing me to speak today on, let me just turn this over real quick. I would like to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to a letter from the Los Angeles Housing Community Investment Department dated January the 27th, 2014. From Mr. Rushmore Cerveris, Interim General Manager, and Ms. Hellman Harrisas, Assistant General Manager, regarding a notice to end negotiation between the Housing and Community Investment Department and the African Community Resource Center concerning a loan agreement number C100.
Thank you. Thank you. It's your time. Mr. Marine.
Good morning. Anybody gonna look at me today? It's hard to trust somebody that won't look you in the eye. Well, as Mr. Kretz and Mr. Park said, we don't live in a perfect world. And therefore, I know the people who've been sheltering my as shown in Hackler and Kohler MOUs ain't been legally accounting for it. Because in this State of the Union, any money sheltered from pay of a Hackler or Kohler employee becomes a public debt. And any money provided to union trust and then placed in union banks for the people of Los Angeles is a public asset. And public assets that remain in public institutions more than 1 year are entitled to interest. And it shows that the people sheltering the money in trust for the benefit of Hackler and Kohler employees on behalf of Hackler Board and the City Council have been misrepresenting Hackler and W2 defined Hackler and Kohler employees as providing service to union contractors instead of we the people. And we know this is a lie. Total misrepresentation. Our government service has to be provided for each hour paid directly by the controller, the entity, or from an insurer, or from a trust in which the public entity pays insurance. The basic rule says I got to be given credit for hours of government service, not hours of service to some union contractor who ain't never gave me no W-2. So y'all been screwing up. No.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, that concludes general public comment for today's council session. So that brings us where?
Council has motions for posting and referral.
They are posted and referred.
That clears the desk.
Okay, announcements. Members, announcements. Mr. Labange.
Along with many others, we were in the National League of Cities, and we did have great opportunity to meet with both Senator Feinstein as well as Senator Boxer, and both gave updates. At the same time, MTA was there as well. It was important for all aspects, including the extension of the Crenshaw line, which was so important on the Purple line, and other aspects as well. But the most important thing is the face-to-face with our local representatives, Ms. Hahn, Mr. Becerra, Karen Bass, Maxine Waters, as well as Brad Sherman, who spent an inordinate amount of time with us as well. And we saw our colleague, Mr. Cardenas, who was there doing a job. So I wanted to report that in and look at other issues in the future. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, any more? Thank you, Mr. Labange. Any more announcements? Okay, then if we could all rise in the council chambers for adjourning motions. I do want to start things off with Mr. Labange and Mr. Englander. Mr. Labange. Mr. Labange.
Members, I just wanted to know we knew that Officer Nicholas Lee, a great officer, Hollywood area, loved by his fellow officer, training officer, comes to work on a Friday morning, early into the shift, shortly after 8 o'clock in the morning, answered another call going up a hill as a truck was coming down a hill, and a fatal collision took place there. He was much loved, and the tribute to his life was last Thursday at the Cathedral of Our Lady of Angels right here in the heart of the city. His family, his two beautiful daughters were there. His mother was so touched by the loss that I know most of us all were there that day to pay our respects. He was born in Korea, raised here in Los Angeles, 3rd Street School, I believe, and then John Burroughs, and then he got over to University High School, finished his education at Cal State Fullerton. But a training officer is a teacher and makes them know and have the confidence to serve in the streets. And he was a much-loved training officer. It was a magnitude 10 plus shock for Hollywood area to lose this officer on such a freak accident. So we ask that we join in memory of Officer Nicholas Lee, a great member of the Los Angeles Police Department who will be sorely missed, and Mr. O'Farrell, who I share Hollywood with, and Mr. Englander, who is our public safety chairman, wants to chime in. And Mr. O'Farrell, may I pass?
So what we'll do, we'll go to Mr. Englander, then we'll come back to Mr. O'Farrell to close.
That's all right. We could go ahead, please. Thank you, Mr. President. Just a little background on Nicholas Chung Lee. He was born August 16th, 1973 in Seoul, Korea. Moved to the United States with his parents, Hung Jae Lee and Chung Ja Lee, his mother, when he was 6 years old. He was raised in Koreatown. Nicholas graduated from University High School in LA in 1991 and attended California State University Fullerton, where he graduated in 1996. He met his wife, Kathy Kim, and they married in 2001. As Councilmember Labange mentioned, his first daughter, Jaylyn, born in 2000, followed by daughter Kendall, born in 2007. Loved his girls very much, took them to school, was very involved in their lives, loved barbecuing and serving family and friends, loving father, husband, a great provider, and was beloved at the Hollywood Division. And I'm going to just read you a quote from Chief Charlie Beck. Nick was a great cop. His hard work, dedication, and leadership helped mold young police officers into law enforcement professionals, said Chief Charlie Beck. Nick's death is a great loss to our police family, all of law enforcement, and the residents of Los Angeles. The LAPD is forever grateful for the 16 years he spent protecting our great city. I send my most sincere thoughts and prayers to his wife, 2 daughters, and the entire Lee family. May he rest in peace, and may God bless his entire family.
And Mr. President,
yes.
Mitch just spoke of, I don't believe our mayor or our chief or anybody in the past spoke so eloquently at the time of this tragedy, of this event, which was so impressive.
Well, it was well said, yes.
Yes, no, thank you.
Mr. Englander.
And thank you to the city family that was able to make it there as well. Right before this tragedy occurred, Nick was actually featured in an LAPD video that I know many of you saw, and it was for 7-year-old Tyler, who was battling leukemia. And in fact, Tyler was able to attend Officer Lee's funeral as well. And you spoke about some of the words that were said at the service. And one of the things that stuck in my mind was what our mayor spoke about, and the fact that, and the message to the entire Lee family and to his kids, to his wife, to his parents, that they have a family in Los Angeles, that we will always be there for them, that we will ensure that we protect them, that we're there for them, and that he'll always be in our hearts and our minds, and always thinking about him. One thing that should also be said is he was a training officer and a great training officer at that, and had a boot with him. And she, fortunately, thankfully, survived, but I'm sure we'll never be the same. And that our hearts
are with her and her family as well as she continues to recover through this tragedy. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Englander. Mr. Price?
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great sadness that I rise to adjourn in the memory of Celeste King IV. Celeste King was the son of legendary Celeste King III, a bail bondsman and political activist. Celeste knew he had big shoes to fill. His father was instrumental in having Santa Barbara Street renamed Martin Luther King Boulevard. He was also the founder of the Kingdom Day Parade, and many of us have had the honor of participating in that. Celeste King IV strived for most of his life to live up to his father's name, and for those who knew him, he absolutely did. He advocated tirelessly for education and became beloved as he was and believed it was the key to changing the fate of young black men, especially that he dealt with so often in his bail bond business. He advocated for prisoners' rights and had an active presence in Sacramento. He didn't know how to take no for an answer. As chair of the Congress of Racial Equality, CORE, Celeste was chair of the Legal Defense and Education Committee. He was survived by his fiancée, Diane Merrifield, his sister and brother, Terry and Toby, and 11 children and grandchildren. May he rest in peace.
Yeah, and Mr. Price, I'd like to sign on that one with you. He was a good guy, and you're right. He wouldn't take no for an answer. Did anybody else want to speak on this issue? Okay, then let me go to
Mr. President.
Mr. Cedillo.
Celeste King could not take no for an answer. He was always popping up in my office in Sacramento, taking up all of Dan Savage's time. We did a lot of work with him here in Los Angeles when we were at Local 660, and then later up in the Capitol. Could not take no. Huge figure, bigger than his frame, and just relentless. Just came up in this culture of being a fighter, and was always fighting the good fight. So Dan will miss him incredibly. He'll walk the halls more comfortably, but miss him incredibly. So God bless his soul. We
all will miss him. And you look into a crowd, he'd be the one person with the lightest suit on. He would stick out. Anyone else on Mr. King?
Good. That's so sad.
Okay, then I think Mr. Englander. Yes.
Colleagues, I'd like to adjourn in memory of Dr. Richard Grossman, the founder of the Grossman Burn Centers and the West Hills Burn Center. Dr. Grossman passed away on Friday at the age of 81 in Sherman Oaks. His lifelong dedication to burn victims began in 1958 when he was a resident in training at Chicago Emergency Room. While there, a parochial school caught fire and the blaze killed 93 children and 4 nuns. After treating the victims, Dr. Grossman dedicated his life to helping burn victims throughout the country. In his own words, he wanted not to just ensure survival, but to restore patients to as close to their pre-injury condition as possible, functionally, emotionally, and cosmetically. In 1969, Grossman convinced a small hospital in Sherman Oaks to set aside 2 beds for burn patients. By 1978, the Grossman Burn Center had expanded to 30 beds in a freestanding building at the Sherman Oaks Medical Center. His office was one of the first to use hyperbaric chambers to put fire victims in pressurized vessels to help fight infection and preserve blood pressure levels. In 2010, it went independent and set up the Grossman Burn Center in West Hills, as well as one in Bakersfield, Kansas City, and one in Phoenix. He was president of the Los Angeles Society of Plastic Surgeons for 8 years, wrote and co-wrote 35 professional articles, and contributed to 6 medical textbooks. Dr. Grossman leaves behind his wife Elizabeth, sons Jeffrey, Peter, and John, and 5 grandchildren. He was also a very close friend of the Los Angeles Fire Department. In fact, I was just at the Grossman Burn Center twice in the last few weeks visiting our firefighters that were burned. They're getting the best treatment. One of his ideas also, when opening and moving the facility with all of his partners, is that they would acquire condominiums right near the burn center, so that when our firefighters are injured and being treated at the Grossman Burn Center, their loved ones who may live far away can stay right across the street with their children and come visit dad or mom in the hospital. Those are the kinds of things that he did, and his family continues to do. He's also consulted with the Los Angeles Fire Department for many years on how to treat on site, on what to do, on how to triage, on what to look for, and how to deal with the emotion of being a victim. And he was truly a remarkable Angelino, one that made a difference not only in so many lives here in Los Angeles, but in the entire country, if for not that matter, the world. May he rest among the angels and rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Englander. Mr. Parks?
I'd ask that we adjourn in memory of Ronald D. Nelson, who served as Chief of Police of Berkeley Police Department from 1982 to 1990. He passed away March 10, 2014, while on a walk with some friends. He was 82 years of age. He had a long, distinguished career in public safety. He began his career in 1956 with the Los Angeles Police Department, where he served for 21 years and rose to the rank of lieutenant. Retired from LAPD in 1977 and served 2 years as a police commander with the Compton Police Department. He left briefly to become the Chief of Police of China Lake Naval Weapons Center in Riverside, and then returned to Compton in 1980, where he was appointed Assistant City Manager. Then he became the City Manager in 1981. Ron could not stay away from his first love, which is police work, and in 1982 he accepted the position as Police Chief of Berkeley, California, overseeing a 300-person department. When he retired 8 years later, Congressman Dellums entered a document detailing his distinguished career in the Congressional Record. He then became the Chief of Police of the University of California, San Francisco, where he served for 12 years. He retired in 2003. He received his Bachelor's of Arts degree in Sociology and Criminology from Drake University and a Master's degree in Public Communication from Pepperdine. Ron was married for almost 60 years to his wife, Barbara. They had 2 children, Rhonda and Harold, 6 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. His extended family was so close they gathered for dinner together each Sunday, including the day before he passed away. Ron was athletic throughout his life and particularly loved hiking, biking, and fishing. He went to the gym every day. Every Monday for the last 11 years, he and a group of friends ate breakfast together and then went on a walk in the East Bay Hills. The hike was about 8 to 10 miles long and ended with lunch. Ron had almost completed his hike at Nimitz Trail at Inspiration Point on March 10th when he collapsed and died of a heart attack around a half mile from the trailhead. 2 of his friends performed CPR but were unable to revive him. Ron is survived by his wife, Barbara, 2 children, Rhonda and Harold, and a host of family members. Arrangements are pending.
Thank you. Then I'd like to adjourn in the... did you have one, Mr. Buscaino?
Yes, sir, and Mr. Bonin as well.
Okay, so let me defer to you two first, Mr. Bonin, followed by Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I rise today to ask that we adjourn in memory of a guy who was a real force in progressive politics here in Los Angeles for a number of years, an Oscar-nominated filmmaker, a relentless and consistent face in progressive activism, and one of the quiet behind-the-scenes forces in Los Angeles' labor movement. His name was David Koff, and he was an Oscar-nominated filmmaker, very well known in Britain for the films Black's Britannica and Occupied Palestine, which had bomb threats at its premieres. But I knew him, and I think many people in Los Angeles knew him as a researcher for Unite Here Local 11 for a very long time in the 90s and in the early part of the last decade. David was a striking figure. He had a long ponytail, he had an immaculately groomed white beard, and he had a very distinct speaking voice and a very keen intellect. He was a legendary labor researcher. He was a media strategist, and he was a videographer whose work captured and helped catalyze the remarkable ascent of LA's hotel workers and the major players in the city's political transformation as our labor movement gained increasing strength in numbers by organizing immigrant communities. One of his former colleagues, James Elmendorf, who a lot of us know from Lane, wrote, "David was an intellectual and an activist of a kind that's all too rare these days. He was funny and incredibly smart and spent the first 30 years of his adult life supporting and making movies about radical international causes. He took work seriously and was passionate about it, talked too much, and made fun of himself. He called our strategy group the Popular Front Organizing Committee, and he was only half joking. He vowed not to cut his hair until he won a campaign, and didn't. He did construction with a friend of his, doing great work and somehow always alienating everybody by showing up late or not at all. He looked like a dope-smoking hippie, but he had the muscle tone of a steroid-using bodybuilder. In the years I knew him," this is James Elmendorf, "he was obsessed with the Kajima Corporation, then the owner of the New Otani Hotel across the street, and he ran a masterful corporate campaign against the Belmont Learning Center project. Some of it was detailed in a 2001 LA Times Magazine article about him called The Bolshevik Who Beat Belmont. I knew David back in the 90s when he was working against another Kajima project, which was a proposed golf course in what was then CD2 in the Tahunga Wash. I didn't work with him much since then, but he was one of these guys who just made a fierce impression on me, and I've never forgot working with him and tried my best to stay in touch. He actually worked on one of Gil's campaigns, Gil's assembly race, and he retired a few years ago and moved to Vermont, where he started writing fiction and continued to work on other documentaries. He was absolutely committed to telling the story of immigrants here in Los Angeles. He did these intimate interviews with housekeepers, dishwashers, cooks in Bellman, and it's sort of a lasting archive of a moment and a movement here in Los Angeles. In his final years, sadly, David battled with demons that were not political. He battled with demons that were personal, and he fought with depression, and sadly, he took his own life. And David was a force, and he will be missed, and I wish that he rest in peace and walk forever in the sunlight of the Spirit. Thank you.
Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. President. Billy Joe Hooper, a pillar in the Watts community, a well-respected businessman, a war hero who passed away March 12th. He was born on May 3rd, 1931 in Long Branch, Texas, was a Korean War veteran and visionary. He came to California after marrying Ethel Hooper and worked 2 jobs to support his family. One of his jobs was a gas station attendant. His work ethics and honesty served him well. He was recommended by the retiring owner as a candidate for franchised owner of a Texaco gas station on Wilmington in the city of Compton, where he resided. He, at one point, he was a franchise owner of 7 stations with AAA Towing, where he employed over 60 employees in this community. Towards the end of his life, he owned a series of Shell gas stations around Southern California, including Hooper's Shell in Watts. May Billy Joe Hooper rest in peace.
I had the opportunity to meet unbelievable fellow when I was working for Supervisor Yvonne Burke. Any more adjourning motions? I will adjourn tomorrow in the memory of O.V. Smith, but I just wanted to say who was just a phenomenal lady, but in the interest of time, I'll save that for tomorrow. Members, we are now adjourned.